The night sky of planet Vereen shimmered like liquid glass. Strange lights moved between the clouds, glowing in silent patterns. Captain Ethan Hale stood on the metal balcony of the human outpost, watching the alien horizon stretch far into the dark. It had been 6 months since peace was made between humans and the Vereen Empire. Yet everything still felt tense and fragile. He often wondered if this peace would last, or if war was waiting just beyond the next sunrise. The outpost was quiet except for the humming of alien machines. They were not built by humans but given to them by the Vereen, full of strange technology that no one fully understood. Ethan didn't trust it, but orders were orders. He had seen enough battles to know that when peace came, it always carried shadows. Suddenly, a small drone shaped like a silver bird flew toward him. It stopped in front of his face and projected a golden light. A voice spoke, calm, powerful, and cold. "Captain Ethan Hale, by royal command, you are to report to the palace of the Vereen Queen at once." The message ended, and the drone vanished into the night, leaving only a faint sound like a whisper. Ethan stood frozen. The Queen herself had summoned him, a human soldier to her royal court that had never happened before. He didn't know whether to feel honored or afraid. He turned toward the command center and prepared his transport ship. The journey took only 2 hours, but it felt much longer. The alien capital shimmered beneath a dome of crystal light, surrounded by floating towers and rivers of glowing energy. It was beautiful, but in a way that felt dangerous, too perfect, too silent. When Ethan stepped out of his ship, 2 tall Vereen guards greeted him. Their armor shining like mirrors, neither spoke a word. They only gestured for him to follow. As they walked through the palace gates, Ethan felt small. The walls were alive, literally breathing as if made of some living material. Every step echoed softly through the glowing corridors. He passed alien nobles with silver skin and bright eyes who whispered as he walked by. He could feel their stares. Cold, curious, judging. He was the only human here, a stranger in a world that looked at him like an insect. Finally, the guard stopped before a pair of golden doors. They opened with a deep sound, and light flooded the hallway. Ethan stepped inside, and there she was, the Queen of Vereen, sitting upon a throne made of glass and stars. Her eyes glowed bright gold, and her hair flowed like liquid light. She was both beautiful and terrifying. Her presence made the air heavy. As if even sound bowed before her, Ethan knelt, unsure if that was the right thing to do. "Rise, human," the Queen's voice echoed, soft yet commanding. "You have been chosen for a task of great importance." Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze, trying not to show his fear. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said quietly. "What do you ask of me?" The Queen studied him for a long moment, then she spoke. "You will serve my daughter." Her words hit him like a shock. "Your daughter?" He repeated, confused. "Yes," the Queen said. "Princess Kalira?" She leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing. "You will protect her, guide her, and obey her every command." Ethan's throat went dry. He didn't understand why a human soldier would be assigned to an alien princess. "What kind of service, Your Majesty?" he asked carefully. The Queen smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "You will find out soon enough," she said. "But remember this, failure will not be forgiven." Before Ethan could ask more, the doors behind him opened again. A soft sound echoed. Light footsteps. Delicate yet strong. When he turned, he saw Princess Kalira. She was young, elegant, and unlike any alien he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly violet under the light, and her eyes looked like tiny stars caught in motion. But her expression was cold, almost angry. She looked at him as if he were beneath her. "So this is the human," she said quietly. Her voice sharp. Ethan gave a small bow. "Captain Ethan Hale, Your Highness." Kalira's lips curved slightly, but not into a smile. "I did not ask for a servant," she said. "But my mother insists." The Queen raised her hand, silencing her daughter. "Kalira, he is here for your protection," the Queen said. "Do not question my decision." Ethan could feel the tension between them like electricity in the air. Something was wrong here, something hidden. Why would the Queen force her daughter to accept a human guard? Why him? Before he could think more, the Queen waved her hand, dismissing him. "Go," she said. "Your service begins now." Ethan followed Kalira out of the throne room. She didn't look back or speak to him. The palace halls seemed darker now, full of whispers and eyes that followed their every step. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. He had come to the palace as a soldier, But as the doors closed behind them, he realized something he could not explain. He had not been chosen, he had been trapped. The next morning began with silence, cold and heavy. Ethan woke in a room made of glowing crystal walls, the air thick with a strange, sweet scent that reminded him he was far from home. Outside the transparent window, the alien city pulsed with soft light, alive and breathing like a living creature. For a moment, he almost forgot where he was, until the door opened and she walked in. Princess Kalira, daughter of the queen, moved like light itself. Her silver hair flowed behind her as she entered, her eyes sharp and cold, studying him the way a scientist studies a specimen. "You sleep late, human," she said quietly, her voice smooth but filled with hidden fire. Ethan stood quickly. "I didn't know when I was expected to report." "Your Highness." "You will call me Princess Kalira," she replied, her tone strict. "Not Your Highness, not ma'am, not anything else," Ethan nodded, unsure if that was respect or control. She turned toward the balcony and looked at the horizon, where alien ships floated like silver birds. "You are here because my mother trusts you," she said, her tone softer now. "I do not." Ethan stayed silent. Kalira turned and looked at him again, her eyes glowing faintly in the morning light. "Humans are emotional," she said. "You act with your hearts, not your minds." Ethan gave a small smile. "Maybe that's what keeps us alive." Her expression didn't change, but for a split second he thought he saw a hint of curiosity behind her coldness. The days that followed were filled with strange duties. Ethan's main task was to follow Kalira everywhere, to her lessons, her meetings, even her quiet walks through the palace gardens. The queen's order was clear: protect her daughter at all times, but Kalira didn't make it easy. She often ignored him, sometimes insulted him, sometimes tested him. One day she deliberately walked through a forbidden corridor filled with glowing vines that reacted to touch. Ethan reached out to stop her. "Princess, it's dangerous." She turned and smiled. "Good. Let's see if your fear is real." Before he could stop her, one of the vines moved, wrapping around her arm with a hiss. Ethan reacted fast, drawing his plasma knife and cutting it loose. The vine screamed and pulled back. Disappearing into the wall, Kalira stared at him, breathing hard, her eyes wide. For the first time, she didn't look angry. She looked shocked, maybe even impressed. "You protected me," she said softly. "That's my job," Ethan replied calmly. She didn't answer, but something in her gaze had changed, even if she tried to hide it later that night. Ethan walked through the quiet palace halls. The walls seemed to hum softly, whispering secrets in a language he couldn't understand. He heard distant voices, 2 guards talking near the queen's chamber. "Her Majesty fears the prophecy," one said. "The human's arrival means it is beginning," the other whispered. Ethan froze, listening carefully. The prophecy? What prophecy? And why was his arrival part of it? Before he could hear more, the guards walked away. Their voices fading into the distance, Ethan returned to his quarters, his mind full of questions he couldn't answer. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the queen's eyes, the way they had watched him, sharp and unreadable, and about the princess, the way her voice had softened for just a moment when she said, "You protected me." He didn't trust any of them, but he couldn't deny there was something about Kalira that drew him in. She was proud and cold, yet he could sense something hidden beneath. Fear. Maybe pain, something human, but how could that be? Around midnight, Ethan heard a faint sound, like a whisper coming from the walls. He stood up and followed it, moving quietly down the corridor. The sound grew louder. It was Kalira's voice. Speaking softly in her room, he approached and listened. "I can't keep hiding this," she whispered. "If my mother finds out, she will destroy me." There was silence. Then another voice, strange, robotic, not human. "The human must not know." "Princess?" Ethan stepped back in shock. Who was she talking to? What was she hiding? The palace felt different after that day. Ethan could sense it in the air. A quiet tension that followed him through every corridor. Guards looked at him longer than before. Servants stopped talking when he walked by. It was as if the palace itself knew something had changed. He couldn't stop thinking about the strange mark that had appeared on Kalira's arm, glowing with a light that looked human. He had seen alien power before, but never like that. Never something that reacted to emotion. Kalira avoided him for 2 days every time he tried to speak to her. She walked away, pretending she didn't hear. But Ethan wasn't a fool. He knew fear when he saw it. The look in her eyes that day had not been pride or anger. It had been terror, whatever she was hiding. It was something big, something dangerous. And somehow it involved him late one night. Ethan decided to search for answers. He moved quietly through the dim corridors of the palace, guided only by the faint blue glow of alien lights. He passed strange murals carved into the walls, ancient figures with both human and Vereen features standing side by side. They looked almost alive under the flickering light. As he walked deeper, the air grew colder, and the walls began to hum softly like a heartbeat. At the end of the corridor, he found a sealed door covered in glowing symbols. He touched it carefully, and to his surprise, the door opened with a hiss, recognizing his presence. Inside was a small chamber filled with strange floating crystals. In the center, a round console flickered to life as soon as he stepped closer. Alien text scrolled across its surface, and then human letters appeared among them. Ethan's heart pounded. He placed his hand on the console, and a voice spoke. "Access granted," it said. "DNA signature confirmed. Human Vereen hybrid protocol active." Ethan froze, his pulse racing. What did that mean? Hybrid? How could his DNA be inside the palace system? Before he could think further, the door slid open behind him. He turned quickly, hand on his weapon, but stopped when he saw Kalira. Her face was pale, her eyes full of shock. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, stepping inside. Ethan stared at her. "Then tell me why my DNA just opened this room." She hesitated, her lips trembling slightly for the first time. She looked uncertain, fragile. "Because," she whispered, "you are part of the reason I exist." Ethan felt like the ground disappeared beneath him. He took a slow step forward. "What are you talking about?" Kalira looked down, unable to meet his eyes. "My mother used forbidden science," she said, her voice trembling. "She wanted to create the perfect bridge between our races. A living being who could control both human and Vereen energy." She placed her hand on her chest. "That being is me." Ethan felt his breath catch. "You mean, you're—" "Yes," she said quietly. "Part human, part Vereen." She looked up, tears shining in her alien eyes. "And your DNA was used to create me." For a long moment, there was only silence between them. Ethan didn't know what to feel. Anger, shock, pity, or disbelief. He had never asked to be part of something like this. "You mean the Queen used me," he said slowly. "Without my consent," Kalira nodded, her voice breaking. "She used both of us, Ethan. I was never her daughter by choice. I was her experiment." Ethan's hands clenched, rage burning quietly inside him. The Queen, the mighty ruler who spoke of peace, had built her power on lies, and now he understood why Kalira feared her own mother. "What does she want from you?" Ethan asked. Kalira took a shaky breath. "My power. She wants me to control a weapon hidden beneath this palace, a weapon that could enslave entire worlds." She turned toward the glowing crystals. "But there's something she doesn't know. The weapon only works when human and Vereen energy are in balance. And that's why she brought you here." Ethan stared at her, realization striking him like lightning. "She brought me to control you," he said slowly. Kalira nodded. "Yes, to keep me in check. To make sure I never rebel." The chamber lights flickered, as if the palace itself had heard their words. Kalira looked around nervously. "We shouldn't stay here," she said. "There are watchers everywhere. The palace listens." Ethan nodded. But before they could leave, a metallic voice echoed from above. "Unauthorized access detected. Report to the Queen immediately." Kalira grabbed his hand. "Run," she whispered. They dashed through the corridor, their footsteps echoing through the crystal halls, alarms blaring behind them. Guards appeared at every turn, but Kalira used her power, sending bursts of blue energy that shattered the walls like glass. They escaped into a hidden passage, breathless and shaken when they finally stopped. Kalira looked at Ethan with wide eyes. "You see now," she said softly. "We are both prisoners of her design." Ethan looked back toward the palace. The light still flashing in the distance, he finally understood. The Queen had never wanted peace. She had wanted control. And somewhere deep inside that glowing palace, the truth was waiting to destroy them both. The secret passage was narrow and cold. Dim blue light flowed through the walls like liquid veins, guiding Ethan and Kalira deeper underground. Neither of them spoke, their footsteps echoing softly in the silence. They had escaped the Queen's guards, but only barely. Ethan could still hear faint alarms ringing somewhere far above them. He didn't know where Kalira was leading him, only that she moved with purpose. Like someone following a memory rather than a path, finally. They reached a wide chamber carved from black stone. The air here felt different, thicker, heavier, almost alive. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the floor. Shifting as they walked closer, Ethan felt the hairs on his arms rise as energy pulsed beneath the surface. Kalira stopped in the center of the room, her face pale. "This is it," she whispered. "The heart of the palace." Ethan looked around, confused. "What is this place?" Kalira turned to him slowly. "It's where I was born." Ethan's chest tightened. She walked toward a large crystal structure standing at the edge of the chamber. Inside it, frozen in time, was a glowing form, small, fragile, shaped like a child. "My first body," she said softly. "When the Queen created me, she built me from this shell. She gave me life, but she also gave me chains." Ethan took a step closer, staring at the figure inside the crystal. It pulsed with faint light, reacting to Kalira's presence. "You were created here," he said quietly, "but why bring me?" Kalira turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Because the truth lies beneath," she whispered. "And only you can open it." Before Ethan could ask how, the floor beneath them shifted. The glowing symbols rearranged themselves. Forming a circle around him, energy shot upward. Wrapping around his body like fire, he staggered back, gasping, as a bright light flashed through the room. Kalira reached out to him. "Don't fight it. It's reacting to your blood." Ethan felt the energy sink into his skin, burning yet strangely familiar. Visions flickered in his mind, strange memories that were not his own. He saw the Queen standing over a lab table, scientists around her. He saw Kalira as a child, her eyes glowing in pain, and he heard a voice, and the Queen's voice, whispering, "The bond between human and Vereen will give me power beyond stars." The light faded slowly. Leaving Ethan trembling, Kalira rushed to him, holding his shoulders. "Are you all right?" He nodded weakly, breathing hard. "I saw her. I saw what she did." Kalira looked away, her voice breaking. "Then now you know what I truly am." Ethan looked at her closely. "You're not a monster, Kalira, you're a prisoner. Same as me." Her eyes widened slightly, and for the first time she smiled. A small, sad smile. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I am the key to her weapon, and you are the other half." Ethan stepped back, stunned. "What do you mean?" Kalira lifted her hand, and blue light flared between her fingers. It danced and shifted, forming into a glowing sphere of energy that floated between them. "This power reacts to emotion," she said. "When I am near you, it grows stronger. The Queen designed it that way." Ethan stared at the light, watching it flicker like a living flame. "So she planned this from the start," he said bitterly. Kalira nodded. "She always plans everything, every move, every life." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the energy glowing softly between them. Ethan could see the pain in Kalira's eyes, and not just fear but loneliness. He realized that behind her royal pride and cold words was someone who had never been free. He took a slow breath. "Then maybe it's time we stop following her plan." Kalira looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we fight back," Ethan said. "Together." Kalira hesitated, torn between hope and fear. "The Queen will destroy anyone who stands against her," she whispered. Ethan's voice was steady. "She already tried to destroy us. What else can she take?" Her glowing eyes met his, and something shifted between them. A fragile bond, built not by orders but by choice. Suddenly the crystal chamber trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. Kalira looked up in alarm. "She knows we're here." Ethan grabbed her hand. Pulling her away from the center, the crystal behind them cracked open, releasing a surge of energy that lit the room in blinding blue light. The floor split and a massive holographic figure appeared. The Queen's face, cold and furious. "So," the Queen's voice thundered, "my daughter dares to defy me and my creation dares to betray me," Kalira shouted back. "You don't own me anymore." The Queen's image smiled cruelly. "You are mine, both of you, and soon you will return to serve." The hologram vanished, and silence fell again. Kalira turned to Ethan, her face pale. "We have to leave the palace now. Where will we go?" Ethan asked. "Somewhere she cannot reach," Kalira said, determination burning in her voice. "There are rebels in the outer deserts. They fight against her rule. They can help us," Ethan nodded, gripping his weapon. Then we run. She gave him a quick look, half fear, half trust. As they fled through the underground tunnels, the palace roared above them like a living beast in pain, and for the first time since he came to this world, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the fragile hope of peace signed on paper, but the real kind, the kind that burns in the hearts of those who dare to fight back. The desert stretched endlessly under two fading suns. Winds howled across the sand, carrying the taste of metal and fire. Ethan and Kalira moved carefully through the shifting dunes, their cloaks whipping in the dry wind. Behind them, far in the distance, the glowing towers of the Queen's palace burned against the horizon. They had escaped, but not safely, not yet. For 2 nights they traveled without rest. The alien desert was alive with strange creatures, long shadows that slithered beneath the sand, glowing eyes that watched from the cliffs. Ethan stayed alert, his plasma weapon ready, while Kalira guided them using the light that shimmered faintly on her palms. She could feel the energy of the land, sense the hidden paths beneath the sand. Sometimes she would stop suddenly, tilt her head as if listening to something only she could hear. Ethan never asked what it was. He had learned to trust her instincts. By the 3rd night, they reached the edge of an enormous canyon. Lightning flashed in the distance, lighting up dark storm clouds that never seemed to move. Kalira looked down at the canyon floor. "This is where the rebels hide," she said quietly. "But they won't welcome us easily." Ethan glanced at her. "Then we'll make them listen." She gave him a small, uncertain smile. "You sound confident for someone walking into an ambush." He grinned faintly. "I've done worse." They climbed down the canyon walls using rough metal cables. The air grew cooler, filled with the smell of dust and machine oil. When they reached the bottom, lights flickered in the shadows. Hidden camps made from crashed ships and old alien tech. Ethan could hear faint voices, whispers echoing between the rocks. Then suddenly, a blinding beam of light hit them from above. "Stop right there," a voice shouted. Deep and harsh, Ethan raised his hand slowly. "We come in peace from the darkness." A group of armed rebels stepped forward, their armor mismatched, their weapons humming with unstable power. One of them, a tall alien with dark skin and golden tattoos, walked closer. "Humans don't come here," he said coldly. "And neither do royals." Kalira lifted her hood, revealing her glowing violet skin and silver hair. The rebels gasped, some stepping back in fear. "She's the Queen's daughter," one whispered. The leader raised his weapon. "Then she dies here." Ethan moved quickly, standing between them. "She's not your enemy," he said. "She's running from the Queen, same as you." The leader narrowed his eyes. "And why should we believe a human?" Ethan met his gaze without fear. "Because I was the Queen's prisoner too, and I've seen what she plans. She wants to enslave every race, including yours." The rebels exchanged uneasy looks. Kalira stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "My mother's empire is built on lies," she said. "She used my blood to create a weapon that can destroy worlds. But I will not be part of it." Her words echoed through the canyon. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the leader lowered his weapon slowly. "If you are telling the truth," he said, "then you will prove it." They took Ethan and Kalira into their hidden base, a massive cave filled with broken starships and glowing engines salvaged from the Queen's fallen fleets. Inside, dozens of rebels worked tirelessly, building strange weapons and repairing damaged machines. Ethan could see both humans and aliens among them, refugees, soldiers and scientists all working together. It was chaos, but it was alive. For the first time since arriving on Vereen, Ethan saw hope, not fear, in people's eyes. The leader introduced himself as Commander Viel, a former general in the Queen's army. "She betrayed us too," Viel said bitterly. "She promised peace, then took our freedom." He looked at Kalira with cold suspicion. "If you truly want to stop her, you'll help us unlock the code that powers her weapon." Kalira hesitated. "It's not that simple." Viel slammed his hand on the table. "It's never simple, Princess, but we don't have time for fear." Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "She's not afraid. She's protecting you," he said. "If the code is activated without balance, it could destroy this entire planet." Vale studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then you'd better learn fast, human." That night, Ethan and Kalira sat by the flickering fire near the edge of the camp. The stars above shimmered like silver dust across the dark sky. Kalira looked at her hands, the faint light of her energy flickering between her fingers. "Do you think they'll ever trust me?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at her, his voice gentle. "They will. When you trust yourself," she smiled faintly, a fragile smile that almost reached her eyes. "You speak like someone who believes in impossible things," she said. Ethan chuckled. "Maybe I've learned to believe in you." Kalira looked away quickly, hiding the color that rose on her cheeks for a moment. The endless war between their worlds felt far away, but deep in the canyon alarms suddenly blared, cutting the silence like knives. Rebels rushed to their stations shouting, "Queen ships! They've found us." Kalira stood, her energy flaring bright blue in the darkness. Ethan grabbed his weapon and looked at her. "Looks like peace will have to wait," she nodded, determination burning in her eyes. For the first time, they would fight side by side, and not as servant and royal, not as human and alien, but as two souls bound by fate. And somewhere far above, in the skies over Vereen, the queen watched from her throne, smiling coldly. "The rebellion has begun," she whispered. "Let them fight. They are already mine." The night sky burned with fire as the queen's warships descended through the clouds. Blue lightning tore across the heavens, shaking the canyon walls with every blast. Ethan could see the enemy fleet, dark silver ships shaped like blades. Slicing through the air like predators, the rebels shouted orders, running to defensive turrets and weapon posts. Dust filled the air as explosions shook the ground beneath their feet. Kalira stood at the center of the chaos, her eyes glowing brighter than ever before. She raised her hands, forming a barrier of shimmering energy above the rebel base. The force field rippled like a living shield, deflecting the first wave of plasma fire. Ethan watched her with awe, her power pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. But he could see the pain in her expression. The shield was draining her fast. "Kalira, stop!" he shouted. "You'll burn yourself out." She shook her head, her voice trembling. "If I stop now, they'll all die." Commander Vale barked orders beside them. "Keep the cannons focused on their dropships," he yelled. "Don't let them land." The rebels fired back, their energy blasts lighting up the canyon in flashes of blue and orange. But the Queen's army was overwhelming. Hundreds of drones and armored soldiers poured from the sky, landing like a flood of shadows. Ethan grabbed his plasma rifle and ran toward the nearest ridge. Covering the rebels' flank, he fired into the advancing troops, each shot echoing through the chaos. The Queen's voice suddenly echoed across the battlefield, amplified through the sky itself. "My daughter." Her tone was cold and full of control. "You cannot hide from me." Kalira froze, her body trembling at the sound of her mother's voice. "Return now," the Queen commanded, "and I may spare the human who follows you." Ethan turned toward her. Seeing the fear flicker in her eyes, he shook his head firmly. "Don't listen to her, Kalira. She's trying to break you." Kalira closed her eyes. Taking a shaky breath, her voice was quiet but strong. "She already broke me once, but not again." She dropped her hands and the energy barrier burst outward in a wave of force. It crashed into the enemy troops, sending dozens flying into the air. But the effort made her collapse to her knees, her power fading like dying light. Ethan rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice desperate. Her eyes fluttered open weakly. "I can't stop it. She's in my mind." Suddenly, Kalira's body stiffened, her eyes glowing a bright, unnatural violet. The Queen's telepathic control was taking hold. Through her, the Queen spoke, her voice echoing from Kalira's lips. "You think you can defy me, human?" she hissed. "You are nothing in my empire." Ethan's heart pounded, but he didn't move. He cupped Kalira's face gently, speaking to her, not the Queen. "Kalira, fight her," he said softly. "You are stronger than she'll ever be." Her hands shook violently, the ground around them cracking under invisible pressure. For a moment, her voice broke through the Queen's control. "Ethan, help me," she whispered, tears glowing like silver on her cheeks. Ethan placed his hand over hers, focusing his thoughts. He didn't know how, but somehow their energies connected, human will and alien power merging into one pulse. A blinding light burst from their joined hands, forcing the Queen's control to shatter. Kalira gasped and fell forward, breathing hard but free again. Above them, one of the Queen's warships exploded in a brilliant fireball. Commander Vale shouted, "We got one!" And the rebels cheered, but their victory was short-lived. The Queen herself appeared above the battlefield, her image projected in the burning sky. Her golden armor gleamed, her face cold and perfect. She looked down on them with contempt. "So be it," she said, her voice echoing like thunder. "You have chosen rebellion. Then you will all burn." Her ships unleashed a new weapon, black energy beams that tore through rock and steel alike. The canyon shook violently as explosions erupted everywhere. Ethan shielded Kalira with his body as debris rained down. Commander Vial was thrown back, shouting orders that no one could hear. When the dust cleared, half the rebel camp was gone. Replaced by smoking craters, Kalira opened her eyes slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "She's using the core weapon, the same one she made from my blood." Ethan looked at her, his mind racing. "If that's true, then we have to destroy it before she wipes out the whole planet." Kalira nodded weakly, her eyes full of sorrow. "The core is inside her flagship, the Sovereign," she said. "It orbits above us now." Ethan looked up at the burning sky, seeing the massive ship like a dark sun. "Then that's where we go next," he said, determination burning in his eyes. Vale limped toward them, covered in dust and blood. "You'll never make it past her defenses," he warned. Ethan met his gaze firmly. "We don't have a choice," Kalira stood, her strength slowly returning. Her eyes glowed with fierce resolve. "This ends with her," she said. Ethan nodded. Together, as they looked up at the Queen's ship burning like a god in the sky, the air trembled with both fear and destiny. The battle for freedom had only begun, and in that moment, Ethan and Kalira knew. Their next fight would decide the fate of two worlds. The sky above Vereen burned red as the Queen's flagship. The Sovereign loomed like a metal god. Its shadow covered the land, casting darkness over the broken canyon where the last rebels stood. Ethan tightened the straps on his armor, feeling the weight of what was coming beside him. Kalira stood silent, her silver hair flowing like light in the wind. Her eyes glowed with determination and sorrow. They both knew this mission might be their last. Commander Vial stood before them, his armor cracked, his voice hoarse. "The Sovereign's defenses are stronger than anything we've faced," he said. "But if you reach the core and destroy it, her control will collapse." Ethan nodded. "Then we go straight to the heart." Vial handed him a small device, its surface flickering with blue light. "This will overload the core once it's placed," he said. "You'll have only minutes to escape." Ethan looked at Kalira. "We'll make it," he said, but his tone carried more hope than certainty. The rebels' last ship, a damaged transport called the Phoenix, lifted into the sky. The engines screamed. Fighting the pull of the Queen's gravity field, Kalira stood at the controls. Guiding them through a storm of plasma fire, Ethan manned the cannons, returning fire at the drones that chased them like vultures. Each explosion lit up the night with blinding flashes. The ship shook violently as energy blasts tore through its hull. "We're hit!" Ethan shouted, gripping the console. Kalira's hands moved fast, her energy surging into the controls, stabilizing the ship with pure will. Her power hummed through the cabin like living electricity. Finally, the Phoenix broke through the outer shields and dove into the hangar of the Sovereign. Metal groaned as they crashed onto the landing deck, sparks flying everywhere. Ethan and Kalira leapt out, weapons ready. Dozens of royal guards rushed forward, armored in black crystal, their eyes glowing red with command implants. Kalira raised her hand and unleashed a burst of pure energy, sending them flying. Ethan moved through the smoke like a storm, firing precise shots, his movements fueled by purpose. They fought as one, every strike synchronized, every breath shared. The corridors of the Sovereign were vast and glowing with blue veins of power. Each pulse of light was the heartbeat of the Queen's empire. They ran through the halls, hearing alarms echo across the ship. At every turn, more soldiers appeared, but none could stop them. Kalira's power grew stronger with every step closer to the core. The energy in her veins called to it, as if the ship itself recognized her blood. Finally, they reached the core chamber. A massive sphere of glowing energy hovered in the air, surrounded by floating rings and electric storms. Inside its light, a figure appeared, and the Queen herself, descending like a god from heaven. Her armor shimmered gold, her crown burning with blue fire. "My daughter," she said softly, her voice both calm and cruel. "You bring a human into my ship, into my blood." Kalira stood tall. "You brought death to your people, not me," she said, "and I will end it." The Queen's eyes glowed brighter. "You think you can destroy what I built? You are my creation, child. You are me." Ethan stepped forward, His weapon raised. "She's not you," he said, his voice steady. "She's everything you could never be." The Queen looked at him with disdain. "You are a parasite, human, clinging to something beyond your worth." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but that parasite just found your heart." He threw the overload device toward the core, but with a wave of her hand, the Queen froze it midair. Energy crackled around them, lightning arcing through the chamber. The Queen raised her hand, ready to strike, but Kalira stepped between them, her energy colliding with her mother's like two suns colliding. The room exploded with light. Kalira screamed, her power pouring out uncontrollably. Ethan fell to the floor, shielding his eyes from the blinding glow. When he looked up, he saw both of them suspended in the air, mother and daughter locked in a storm of light and fury. The Queen's voice roared, "You cannot destroy me!" Kalira's voice echoed back, "I'm not destroying you, I'm freeing us." With one final cry, she unleashed everything inside her. The light from her body turned white, then burst outward like a star being born. The core shattered, its energy imploding in a spiral of blue fire. The ship trembled violently as alarms screamed. Ethan ran forward, grabbing Kalira as she fell from the air. He pulled her close as the chamber began to collapse. "Stay with me," he whispered. "We're almost there." She opened her eyes weakly, smiling. "You were never my servant, Ethan," she said softly. "You were my choice." He carried her through the collapsing corridors, the explosion chasing them like a burning wave. The Phoenix's ramp was still open, engines flickering weakly. Ethan laid Kalira inside and launched the ship into the sky just as the Sovereign erupted behind them. The explosion turned night into day, a sun blooming over the planet. The shockwave threw the ship far into orbit. Silence following the storm. Hours later, the Phoenix drifted above the blue horizon of Vereen. Ethan sat beside Kalira, who rested weakly but alive below them. The Queen's empire burned, her towers collapsing, her fleet scattered. The people were free at last. Kalira turned her head slightly, whispering, "It's over." Ethan looked at her with a tired smile. "No," he said quietly. "It's just beginning." They stared out the window as dawn rose over the alien world. For the first time, light touched Vereen without fear, and somewhere in that light, two souls, human and alien, had found peace. Together they had defied a queen, destroyed a weapon, and rewritten destiny. And though the war was over, their story had only just begun.